Okay, in the Second World War, during the period of this Second World War, the principles of international humanitarian law they were flouted, but with the adoption of the Charter on United Nations, maintenance of universal peace was also discussed, and it was given foremost importance. So this is what international humanitarian law also gave the intention to preserve some humanity in the mindset of war was de-emphasized because of the hopes that there would be no longer the reason to use it. Now, the inability of the states to reach to the an agreement on the establishment of a joint armed forces and beginnings of the Cold War brought armed conflicts and a result of international humanitarian law to the for a diplomatic conference was held at Geneva in 1949, where the effects of Second World War to be lessened by the whole nations who are the signatory of such convention. So, diplomatic conferences for the establishment of international convention for the protection of victims of war adopted the four Geneva Conventions 1949 which remain in force today and which have been universally ratified. But it did not, however, succeed in including within these convention most of the rules concerning the conduct of hostilities. Hague Law, essentially due to the different views on the question of nuclear weapons, and the United Nations also the which was deemed as the only power at that time to rule and to make such laws. So this concerning that would not accept the possibility of their use being banned, fearing that such a prohibition would undermine their effect as deterrent, whereas several other states will not wish to discuss the questions concerning the restriction of certain weapons without also examining the question of nuclear weapons. That impasse lasted for many years. So, in this way, the result that put forth on the solution of finally founding to break these ambiguities and involve to separating the questions of weapons of mass destruction, that biological and chemical nuclear weapons, and the other things which are related to such massacre, and after all the prohibition of development, production and stock keeping, piling of the bacteriological and toxic weapons. So, on convention on the prohibition of development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons and their destructions in 13th of January 1993, the agreement was being passed. Now, let's coming back to the Saint Petersburg 1948. So, what was the issue that had been laid to make this convention on Saint Petersburg? So, first of all, we will see what are the background that with regard to conventional weapons. A group of doctors were also tried to establish objectives of such notion of superfluous injury, and then they were failed, and then the idea was that the criteria would be used by the states or national levels to stop such inhuman weapons also. Then let the structure put in the convention in certain conventional weapons. Let's see what are different conventions on the weapons, right? So, while looking to the protocol on explosive remnants of war, 28 November 2003, that was the protocol 5. The discussion that led to the adoption of this protocol were prompted mainly by the appearance of cluster bomb, weapons, then the other systems that chemical bombs and such are used, explosive devices that have been used. So, in this way, if you can see that they were very harmful to the mankind, and then they were being used for such wars. The protocol on non-detectable fragments, that was also, this protocol is of minor importance because the projectiles concerned are not widely used, but the deliberate use of projectiles, and that was not detectable by X-rays. Then protocol on prohibition of restriction of the use of mines, booby traps and other devices. And although it was also applies to other devices, this protocol is important primarily because of the restrictions it places on the use of anti-personnel mines, and which continue to afflict untold number of people, majority of whom are civilians and many children. So this way, if you find out that this protocol of St. Petersburg particularly think about the use of such chemical weapons or exploited region and such other weapons which are harmful to the mankind. Then protocol on blinding laser weapons, that 13th of October 1995, this protocol, all these are the parallel protocols which are the part of St. Petersburg's Declaration of 1948. So, the protocol of on blinding laser weapons, that protocol number 4. So, this protocol provides a rare and perhaps unique example of a weapon that is prohibited before ever having been used in warfare. The development of laser technology, especially for the purpose of measuring, has created the technical possibilities of producing weapons specifically designed to blind. In the light of concerns raised by this possibility, the International Convention for such war crimes held interdisciplinary expert meetings, and a report of which were transmitted to states for their consideration. The states were convinced for the importance of immediately prescribing the use of such weapons without totally excluding the laser technology owing to its military usefulness or instances. As previously mentioned, for the purpose of measuring, it is therefore specifically the use of blinding laser weapons that is prohibited by the protocol 4, and to our knowledge, such weapons have never been used. Then protocol on explosive remnants of war, that on 28th of November 2003, this is also recognized as protocol of 5, and the discussion that led to the adoption of this protocol were prompted mainly by the appearance of cluster bombs and weapons and systems consisting of single man bomb that release a large number of small explosive devices such used in the wartime. So these weapons are known to leave many small devices exploded, especially if they fall on soft vast terrain, and they then remain dangerous in a way similar to anti-personnel mines, and resulting in the death and serious injury to the civilians, with children often becoming the victims. Because they consider them useful for military purposes, states are nevertheless reluctant to adopt a total ban on these weapons. Instead, they prefer to introduce restrictions and technical guidelines to reduce the collateral damage among civilians. For instance, limiting the number of unexploded devices through the designing of more reliable weapons or the neutralization of such devices after a specific period of time. So while discussion on beginning or banning of such type of devices or weapons, then the states nevertheless agreed to measure to clear all the areas of unexploded devices and more generally of explosive remnants for war that are dangerous to the civilian population. These measures were incorporated into a new protocol. So, states seeking further limitations, however, were not satisfied with this protocol, just as with anti-personnel mines made separately to adopt a convention on cluster munitions. So, what other parallel developments have been undergoing on the same protocol? That states turned to alternative channel owing to their frustration in some cases where they considered it to merge the results achieved within the framework of the revision system under the Convention on certain conventional weapons. So the consistent efforts to adopt the text by consensus within that framework stemmed from an understandable desire to achieve the widest possible adherence, if not immediately, then in the medium term. So this way, if you see that the frustrated outcome of this discussion held in 1996 on amendments to Protocol 2 of the anti-personnel mines, which they saw inadequate, and then the states held a diplomatic conference on anti-personnel mines. They were determined to achieve a total ban on the use of such mines, and without necessarily achieving the consensus of all states. The participants in the conference, which are held in Ottawa, and adopted the Convention on the Prohibition of the Use, then stockpiling or production or transfer of anti-personnel mines, and on their destruction in Oslo on 18th of September 1997. Although some major powers did not attend the conference, in fact distanced themselves from it, but the sheer number of states parties to the convention gives indisputable authority and that leverage the international efforts. So, if you see that Ottawa Convention on landmines, then it had an undeniable impact, and for the convention of cluster munition, even in the states, has shown more reluctant in this area. However, these two conventions should not be seen as a death sentence for the convention on certain conventional weapons. The system established by the latter, that proven to be intelligent, works well. It is therefore important to maintain the language and the dialogue it makes possible among all the states, and work that has been taken. And in this way, a case in point is contemporary issue of so-called non-lethal weapons. that was another issue. The parallel system used by the states on two occasions must therefore be considered as complete complement rather than a substitute system established by the conventions. Then it can play the important role if it prohibits in question are supported a large number of states. Then if you see what are various legal instruments that are available right now on the wounded armies, that convention for the amelioration of the condition of wounded in armies in the field, that Geneva 22nd August 1864, then Declaration of St. Petersburg to the effect of prohibiting the use of certain projectiles in the water mine, St. Petersburg 1868, Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war, Geneva, that is on August 12, 1949, and Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in the time of war. And then Geneva Convention on the amelioration of condition of the wounded, sick and shipwrecked members, that we already have seen in our first lecture. So these are different protocols and conventions which have impact on the wounded soldiers and other things. So dear students, till today we have taken yes. So in this lecture we already have seen the first unit, International Movement for Humanitization of Warfare, in which contribution of classical writers, history of Red Cross, then Geneva Convention of 1864 for amelioration of the conditions of wounded soldiers in land army, and St. Petersburg Declaration of 1868. This we have seen. So we will see in the next lecture the Hague Convention of 1899 and 1907.